Welcome to Reporters Uncensored, RUTV. I'm your host, Tala Diled Shahi. Thanks for joining us. Our global team of reporters bring you human interest stories not covered in the mainstream media. Tonight we're going to look at Iran's dark secret, child prostitution and sex trafficking. While the world was watching Iran during this election battle, the sex trade industry was thriving. According to the UN, international and non-governmental groups, child prostitution has jumped 635% in recent years, and dozens of Iranian girls are brought to Arab countries, Pakistan, and Bangladesh to be sold as sex slaves. Many runaway girls are refugees, some as young as 11, and many Afghans. They are being forced into several child prostitution rings organized by what some believe to be the government. Here are some images on the situation inside Iran that shed some light on the enormity of the problem.
وقت رفتن نمیخوام ببینمت میدونم ببینمت کم میارم اگه یک لحظه فقط نگام کنی دلمو پشت سرم جا میذارم اگه خون سرد نگام به دل نگیری دل تو یه روز ازم خسته میشه اگه اسممو فقط صدا کنی راه رفتن واسه من بسته میشه وقت رفتن نباید روی کنی اینجوری دلم برات تنگ نمیشه میدونم توی دنیا که باشم نمیشه اگه خون سرد نگام به دل نگیری دل تو یه روز ازم خسته میشه اگه اسممو فقط صدا کنی راه رفتن واسه من بسته میشه
Joining us live now via Skype is Norma Ramos, Executive Director of the Coalition Against Trafficking in Women. Welcome, Norma, to the show.
Thank you for inviting me to be a part of this program.
We're delighted to have you. Now, my first question is, how are these girls being trafficked? Is the government turning a blind eye?
I think that's pretty clear. All the reports that we are getting out of Iran, all of the official reports are showing the same thing, that there is tremendous vulnerability of young women and girls in Iran, and the government and other institutions that should be doing everything they can to prevent this from happening are engaged either in inaction or are turning a blind eye, or in some instances are complicit in the human trafficking of their own citizens and other citizens coming in from other countries, specifically Afghans.
Mm-hmm. So really, a lot of these are refugees that are seeking shelter inside Iran. 1 to 2 million Afghan refugees per year that try to seek shelter inside Iran. And a lot of these girls, 11 years old, from what the clip is telling us, are being trafficked. So I guess the main question is, why are these girls, there's a huge runaway population. What are they running away from that is causing them to get caught in these trafficking circles?
Well, I think we all know that the social political conditions in Iran are not hospitable to equality for women and girls. There's a tremendous amount of repression of women and girls throughout the world, and Iran is an example of that, of a country that has the wholesale inequality of women going on in a way that is creating very desperate situations for girls and women. And very often, not unlike what happens all over the world, girls could run away from home for a number of reasons. They could include, and often include, that they are running away from abuse that is going on within the home by their own family members. And what is so tragic about that is that they may be leaving a home where sexual abuse and exploitation is going on, and in order to escape that, they may run away and they will find even more sexual abuse and exploitation on the streets.
And so, Norma, how exactly does this prostitution operation work? I mean, how are these women and young girls being trafficked? I mean, do they meet up with somebody on these streets? I know a lot of the girls, there's a drug problem within this industry. I mean, do they get them drugged up? I mean, how exactly do they get them out of the country?
You know, I often say that there must be some kind of a handbook for traffickers and pimps all over the world, because what we have found at the Coalition Against Trafficking in Women is that the traffickers and the pimps, and traffickers and pimps are really one and the same thing. They're all using the same tactics, and they include the things that you just referred to. They include the use of drugs. They include violence. They include trickery. They include a range of tactics. And very often, the situation that women and girls find themselves in are so desperate that it doesn't often take a lot to put women and girls in situations where they're going to be sexually exploited if the women and girls are already in horrific, vulnerable situations. And poverty does that. Gender inequality does that. And this is a huge problem in Iran. And then you have to add into that the religious context. And what you have going on in Iran is the use of a religious cultural tradition actually working to sanctify prostitution.
And that's just devastating to see that religious communities are using the religion and institutionalizing these prostitution circles. It's devastating. What are the top countries that are receiving these young girls from Iran?
Iranian youth and women are being trafficked really throughout the world, but primarily we see them being trafficked to England, to Pakistan is one of the countries that they're being trafficked into. They are being trafficked into really the Persian Gulf states is a major area of trafficking in terms of women being trafficked out of Iranian women being trafficked and girls out of the country. Those are the key areas.
In the clip it said that some of these girls are being traded for as low as $60, which just seems horrific. I mean, is this the price of a human life? Is that how low people are willing to go to pay for these young girls?
Shockingly, that is a fact. We are living in a deeply troubled time when it comes to the issue of sex trafficking and human trafficking, which includes forced labor. I was just talking about this with someone, that this is because of the financial global crisis, and also because of that region in the world with it being an area of conflict, a military conflict. We're living in a world where we're seeing a increase in human trafficking. And the way I talk about it and the way I feel about it and why I work against it, and the Coalition Against Trafficking's founders and current partners, which are over 400 worldwide, is that we are looking at some of the world's ugliest human behavior.
Yeah, and it's devastating. We're going to go to a clip now on the situation with the temporary marriage contracts, the sireh, which is a form of this institutionalized prostitution that the government condones inside Iran. This film was produced by Iranian-Swedish filmmaker Nahid Pearson, and it's entitled Prostitution Behind the Veil. We'll be back with Norma in a few moments.